Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to share with you my garden. One of my favorite things to do is to, at some point during the day, walk through and tour my garden. I like to stop in and check on how each plant is developing. I like to look at each plant and see how it's doing, see how the soil's doing. It's just one of my favorite things to do. The garden is definitely an anchor point for us where we like to get together and meet up and talk about the developments we are seeing in the garden, and it's just a really fun thing to share and to see grow and to see how our actions and our labor have contributed to the development of this space. We definitely did a lot more this year than we have in the previous years, and we are kind of working with that principle of maximizing the space that we have, working with what's here, not needing more or needing less, just kind of working with what we have, which, for two people is quite a lot of space. So we were really excited to get this year going, and as the season changed and we had a really warm April, so spring definitely was inviting to get us out in the garden. So I will walk you through. This was recorded the beginning of June, so it's kind of end of spring, beginning of summer, but I'm just going to call it the spring tour, and we'll take you through. Okay, let's go. So first thing I'm going to show you is an ivy plant. I actually bought two ivy plants this year, one for the front yard and one for the back here. Just envisioned an ivy wrapping around that pillar and maybe even expanding out to other areas of our deck just to bring some of that green onto our deck area. All right, these are some daisies. This is a peony. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Andrew calls it a peony, so I'm just trusting him because I didn't know the name of it. So I planted these peonies and the daisies together in the first summer. These peonies, I tell you, every year they come back stronger and stronger. This is the rhubarb plant. I showed you the rhubarb plant in the previous vlog. And this, I tell you, came back strong after I harvested the first in the early spring. And then here we have some garlic. So these are Andrew's potato buckets. He's got a couple potato seeds in there. We got about 4 buckets spread out in the garden. He is definitely the potato guy. This is, I call Rad, this little bean plant. It's a green bean plant. I call him Rad because he is my first little transplant seedling from that I grew inside. He was the first one ready to be transplanted. He kind of just barreled through the soil right away and sprouted and grew really strong, and so he was able to be transplanted into the soil right away. Originally I had planted beans in this tire earlier in the season and the seed never came up, so I tried planting the little seedling inside on my second attempt, and this is what it produced, so got to go into the tires. This is marigolds. Definitely wanted to make sure my garden had flowers for the bees and the butterflies and the moths and the birds to pollinate with. And here is one of the first things that came up in the garden is our pea plant. They always do really well. They're super abundant, super fast, super easy to grow. They're always fun to have in the garden just because you can't really do them wrong. So that's our pea plant. It hasn't produced any flowers yet, but in time I'm sure. There's a second one of Andrew's potato buckets. Here we got 4 tomato plants that I planted from seed straight into the garden bed, and those popped up, so that was really exciting. It took a little bit. I have to realize that some seedlings come up really fast and others don't. These took a little bit. They probably took over a month before they sprouted, so that was really excited to see those guys come up. This is a larger transplant that I had bought at the store because I got impatient with my other tomatoes. I was like, I want something green in the garden, so I bought 4 already like established little plants, and then that way too I have like a level of age of the plant, so that once this big one, being the oldest and the biggest, it's going to produce first, but it will probably die out first, so I'll have a staggering of producing fruit, which is nice. Another potato bucket of Andrews. No sprout yet. Oh, I want to show you, so I might as well just show you my little seedlings. So these are the seedlings that we got. Andrew planted these, so he's got a couple tomatoes, handful of tomatoes. He planted some basil and some dill, and then I have some tomatoes coming up as well, and you can see like the varying degree of stages. Here we have some green pepper plants. They seem to get yellow pretty quick and seem to also dwarf. They didn't seem to grow and really take root and like really bloom where they were sitting until recently. That back one you can tell is a lot greener. It seems to be doing a little better than the first two here. And then we have carrots. Andrew planted these. And then here I have some squash, which I planted some acorn squash, which is one of my favorite things. It was like my favorite thing as a kid. And then next to them I planted corn, and I did that strategically because I had read that corn and squash like to be planted alongside. Our fourth potato bucket of Andrews. And then we have these little blue flowers that are growing alongside the bed here. I don't know if these are weeds or if they are a part of a wildflower packet that I had planted the first and second summer. But they're beautiful, and if they're weeds, I mean, I don't care. I think they're so cute and pretty, and they just add this really nice accent to the corner bed. They are coming up along the two beds, and then also next to the tires. I just think I think they're beautiful. I really like them. So they're not causing any problems for me. So I'm leaving them. Nice little surprise I didn't expect. So that's the one side of the bed. Oh, and then we have one of our favorite pieces of the garden. This is our raspberry bush, and the bees, I tell you, just love this place. This was here when we moved in, and we were so excited because we didn't have to do anything, and we got to enjoy raspberries that first summer and last summer, and this summer we will as well, and I'm just really excited. This is one of my favorite things to do in July and August, is just come out every day and get a handful of raspberries to snack on. This is a new addition to our garden this year. It's a blueberry bush, and I just am so in love with the raspberry and have so much fun with it. I figured I wanted another berry bush. So I love blueberries, and they also had this when I went and got my tomato transplants. So I was like, yes, sold, getting a blueberry bush. It's got some flowers. I've never had a blueberry bush. I've never seen a blueberry bush in real life before, so I'm not sure how it's going to develop. But I'm assuming flowers means food, so I'm really excited for this one. So that's the one side of the garden. This is our backyard, and we have another side here. So that's a compost. Weeding, I've been doing a bunch of weeding, which seems never ending. These plants, I'm not sure what they are. They've just grown. We haven't planted them, but they have started to produce flowers. This used to be known as the potato patch. We couldn't find potato seeds right away at the beginning of the year, so we decided to plant other things. So Andrew put this together here. So he cleaned out this back area. He planted a bunch of radishes and spinach and peas and a bunch of stuff in the back, which never came up. So we're not quite sure what happened there, but the radishes we've since harvested since I've recorded this video. But yeah, Andrew cleaned out this back corner for us and did a bunch of plants because he decided we weren't going to do potatoes because we couldn't find them initially. I later then found some at a farmer's market, and so we have since planted lots of potatoes. And this is our third garden bed. This is an oregano plant that we got. So this is kind of an half herb garden or herb bed that we have made. Andrew planted this cilantro, which initially didn't look like it was doing too well, but I tell you, it's really bushed out. It's really grown exponentially, and it just looks so good. And this is like the one herb I use probably the most. Basil, this is the second time we've planted basil. We also have some seedlings of basil. This is a lemon thyme. plant that doesn't seem to be doing too well here. And then if you notice this little nugget here is a squash seed. And the funny thing about this is I did not plant squash in this bed this year. I planted them actually the first summer we were here. I planted squash. I planted a bunch in this garden bed and nothing came up, pretty much nothing, including the squash seed. So it's really funny because basically I turned up this bed, I cleaned it out, I added some soil to it, and I planted a bunch of new stuff, and here this random squash seed from 2 summers ago decided it was ready to sprout. So this is a pretty fun surprise here. Did not expect him to show up. So I have since transplanted a bunch of romaine lettuce seedlings that I had started because none of my lettuces were coming up. So I started a bunch from seed, and then I transplanted them into the garden bed now. So this is the little romaine lettuce seedlings that will be going into that bed, that have since gone into that bed. Also, asparagus has sprouted here in the seedlings, which I'm so excited about. Here we have a rose bush. This rose bush we got the first summer we were here, and we planted it, and it's done really well. It's produced lots of roses in the last few summers. I cut it down pretty substantially this summer at the beginning of the year just to give it an opportunity to do some regrowth. And yeah, it came up pretty strong, and we're gonna have some roses here in time. Here is that second rhubarb plant. I harvested this for a second time. This is one of Andrew's little carvings he did. This is our sunflower area. So these are, I think they're called dahlias. I forget actually, but they are in the sunflower family. And those are flowers for the pollinators. But I planted them alongside these sunflowers, which I'm so excited for because these also I planted the first year in the garden. They never came up. This is the new potato patch Andrew tore up. This was all grass before. This is a big lily plant, which was here from the owner previously before we moved in. And so this year, every year it gives us these beautiful yellow lilies, which you can see are slowly emerging. In our summer garden tour video, you'll definitely see a lot of change, a lot of blooming happening, a lot more color in the garden. So this is the yard. This is our garden. It's just alongside here on each side of our garden. Compost in the back, compost in the front. Hazel gets to enjoy the center yard. That's our garden.